All right, listen. Before we talk about building a strong mind, we need to understand something fundamental. Your starting point. Where are you right now? How do you think? How do you feel about your life? If you don't know that, how can you move towards something better? In my work as a clinical psychologist, I've spoken to countless people who feel stuck, trapped in cycles of anxiety, depression, or confusion. And one of the first things I tell them is, look at your life with brutal honesty. No excuses, no justifications. What patterns are you following? What are your daily habits? Are they building something, or are they just keeping you afloat? This is where a core idea from my work comes in: the balance between chaos and order. Life is neither fully predictable nor completely chaotic. And if you feel lost, it's likely because you've tilted too far in one direction. Order is good. It gives you structure, stability. It allows you to move forward. But too much order can make you rigid, stuck in a routine that stifles growth. Chaos, on the other hand, is the realm of the unknown. It's where opportunity exists, but also danger. And if you live entirely in chaos, you'll feel anxious, disoriented, without purpose. So the first thing you need to do is figure out where you stand. If your life feels like a mess, chaotic, directionless, you need to introduce order. And that starts with the basics, things you can control right now. Take your room, for example. I know it sounds simple, even trivial, but if you can't even organize the space you sleep in, how do you expect to organize your mind? There's a reason I emphasize this so much. How you do the small things is how you do everything. If you start your day in disorder, in chaos, what message are you sending your brain? That everything is a mess, that you're not in control. But if you start your day with an act of order, making your bed, cleaning your desk, you're telling yourself, I am capable of imposing order on my world. And that small change has a ripple effect. So before we move on to more complex habits, I want you to do something today. Look at your environment, organize it, and notice how it changes your perception of the day. This isn't symbolic, it's psychological, and it's the first step toward building a stronger mind. All right, now that we've talked about chaos and order, let's move on to something even more fundamental: responsibility. If you want to develop a strong mind, you have to stop avoiding responsibility. And I know that might sound harsh, but listen carefully, because this is one of the most important psychological principles you'll ever hear. One of the biggest mistakes people make, especially young people today, is thinking that avoiding responsibility will make them free. That if they don't commit to anything, if they keep all their options open, they'll somehow be happier. But that's wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite of the truth. See, your mind isn't designed for aimlessness. It's wired for meaning. And meaning isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you create. And the way you create it is through responsibility. Think about it. What gives life meaning? It's not endless pleasure. It's not escaping difficulty. It's the things you commit to, the people who rely on you, the goals you work toward, the standards you hold yourself to. That's what shapes you. That's what makes you strong. And you don't start with massive responsibilities. No one's asking you to change the world overnight. You start small. Maybe it's being reliable at work, showing up on time, doing your job properly. Maybe it's taking care of your body, eating well, getting enough sleep, exercising. Maybe it's supporting the people around you, being someone they can count on. The point is, you choose something to carry, and you carry it well. And when you do that, something profound happens. You become someone. You develop competence. You develop confidence. And most importantly, you develop resilience. Because life will be hard. You will suffer. That's a given. But if you've built yourself up, if you've taken on responsibility, you'll be able to face that suffering with strength instead of despair. So here's your challenge for today. Find one thing, just one, that you can take responsibility for, and do it properly, not half-heartedly, not as a chore. Do it because it's the first step toward becoming someone capable, someone strong. And once you've done that, we'll move on to the next step. Now that we've talked about responsibility, we need to address something that most people underestimate: the power of your words. If you want to build a strong mind, you have to commit to telling the truth. And I don't just mean avoiding outright lies, though that's part of it. I mean learning to speak carefully, precisely, and honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. Why? Because when you distort the truth, when you say things just to please others, or when you avoid saying what you really think, you weaken yourself. You create a gap between what you know and what you say, and that gap erodes your integrity. It makes you anxious. It makes you resentful. And worst of all, it makes you lose trust in yourself. I've seen this play out countless times. People who spend years telling small lies to their friends, to their family, to themselves, end up completely lost. They don't even know who they are anymore because their words have shaped a reality that isn't real. So what's the alternative? You practice speaking the truth, carefully, thoughtfully, but firmly. That doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean blurting out everything that crosses your mind. It means saying what you believe to be true and standing by it even when it's hard. And I'll warn you, this is difficult. It might cost you friendships. It might make you uncomfortable. But the price of dishonesty is far worse. See, when you commit to truthful speech, something remarkable happens. People start to respect you, even those who disagree with you. You gain clarity because when you force yourself to say things precisely, you actually figure out what you think. And most importantly, you become stronger because a person who speaks the truth cannot be easily manipulated. So here's your challenge for today. Pay attention to your words. Catch yourself when you're about to lie, especially when it's a lie to make life easier. Instead, practice telling the truth. See what happens. See how it changes you. Because if you can master your speech, you can master your thoughts. And if you can master your thoughts, you can master your mind. And that is how you truly become strong. All right, now that we've covered truth, responsibility, and order, we need to talk about something just as important: disciplining your mind. Most people have no control over their thoughts. Their minds wander aimlessly, jumping from one distraction to another, reacting emotionally to every little thing. They live in a constant state of mental chaos. And if your mind is in chaos, your life will be in chaos too. So, how do you fix this? You train your mind just like you would train your body. Think about it. If you want to be physically strong, you don't just wake up one day and bench press 200 pounds. You start with small weights and you consistently push yourself. Over time, you get stronger. The same principle applies to your mind, and it starts with attention. In psychology, there's a concept called selective attention. The idea that what you focus on shapes your reality. If you constantly focus on negativity, on everything that's wrong in your life, guess what? Your mind will filter out anything positive, and your world will feel miserable. But if you train yourself to direct your attention towards something meaningful, you can rewire your perception of reality. This is why practices like reading, writing, and even meditation are so powerful. They force you to focus, to organize your thoughts, to refine your understanding of the world. And if you can discipline your mind, if you can learn to think clearly, to concentrate deeply, you'll be unstoppable. But let's get practical. How do you start? First, reduce distractions. Your mind is like a muscle. If you constantly overstimulate it with social media, meaningless entertainment, or mindless scrolling, it weakens. Cut down on the noise. Choose what you consume wisely. Second, practice structured thinking. That means reading difficult books, writing down your thoughts, engaging in real conversations, not just passive consumption. Push yourself to think deeply about something every single day. And third, challenge negative thought patterns. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not good enough, that you'll fail, that nothing matters, well, you're setting yourself up for exactly that. Learn to recognize those patterns and replace them with disciplined, rational thinking. So here's your challenge for today. Pay attention to your thoughts. Catch yourself when your mind drifts into chaos, into distraction, into negativity. Then redirect it. Choose what you focus on. Train yourself to think with clarity and purpose. Because a disciplined mind is a strong mind, and a strong mind can handle anything. Now, if you really want to build a strong mind, you need to understand something fundamental. You grow through struggle, not comfort. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding difficulty. They think that if they can just eliminate all challenges, if they can make life as easy as possible, they'll be happy. But that's not true. That's never been true. See, comfort is deceptive. It feels good in the moment, but too much of it makes you weak. And the problem with weakness is that life doesn't care. Life will challenge you, whether you're ready or not. You will face suffering, you will experience loss, you will encounter failure, and if you've spent your whole life avoiding difficulty, those moments will break you. But there's another way. Instead of running from struggle, you can embrace it voluntarily. You can seek out challenges before they seek you out. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You get stronger. This is an old idea. It's deeply embedded in philosophy, religion, and psychology. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The idea is that if you choose your suffering, if you willingly take on responsibility, discipline, and challenge, you transform suffering into growth. So how do you apply this? You start by doing hard things on purpose. Wake up earlier than you want to. Push yourself physically. Go to the gym, run, train. Learn something difficult, something that stretches your mind. Have the hard conversations instead of avoiding them. Set goals that actually demand effort. And as you do this, you'll notice something. What once seemed impossible becomes manageable. Your tolerance for difficulty increases. You stop seeing hardship as a curse and start seeing it as an opportunity to become more than you were yesterday. So here's your challenge. Find one difficult thing, something you've been avoiding, and do it willingly. Not because you have to, but because you're choosing to grow. See how it changes you. See what happens when you stop running from struggle and start embracing it. Because the strongest people you admire, the ones who inspire you, they didn't get there by taking the easy path. They got there by facing challenges head on, and you can too. If you've followed along so far, you understand the importance of responsibility, discipline, and struggle. But now we need to talk about something that holds it all together. Truth. Truth is not just about not lying, though that's a good start. Truth is about living in alignment with reality. It's about acting in a way that is consistent with what you know to be right. And when you fail to do this, when you deceive yourself or others, when you twist reality to avoid discomfort, you weaken yourself. People lie all the time. They lie to avoid conflict, to make things easier, to protect their egos. But every lie comes with a cost. Every time you distort the truth, you create instability in your own mind. You introduce chaos into your life, and the more you do it, the further you drift from who you really are. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're in a job you hate. You know it's not right for you. You feel it every morning when you wake up. But instead of facing that truth, you tell yourself it's fine. You ignore the discomfort. You pretend it's not that bad. And maybe that works for a while, until one day you wake up and realize you've wasted years of your life living a lie. Now contrast that with someone who faces the truth. Someone who admits, this isn't right for me. I need to make a change. That person might go through some struggle, sure. But because they're rooted in truth, they have clarity, they have direction, and ultimately, they build a life that aligns with who they really are. This applies to everything, your relationships, your career, your goals, even your internal dialogue. If you tell yourself you're worthless, that you'll never succeed, that you're doomed to fail, those are lies too. And they will shape your life just as much as any external deception. So how do you build the habit of truth? You start small. Stop saying things that make you weak. If you don't believe what you're saying, don't say it. Listen to your own discomfort. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it, explore it. Ask yourself why. Have the difficult conversations. The truth is often uncomfortable, but ignoring it is worse. And here's your challenge. Pay attention to your words and actions today. Notice where you might be bending the truth, to yourself or to others. And instead of taking the easy way out, say and do what is true, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it costs you something. Because when you live in truth, you become someone solid, someone reliable, someone strong. And a strong mind is built on a foundation of truth. Life is a constant interplay between two fundamental forces, order and chaos. If you want a strong mind, you need to understand how these forces shape your existence, and more importantly, how to balance them. Think about order. Order is stability, structure, predictability. It's what allows society to function. It's the discipline of waking up on time, fulfilling responsibilities, maintaining routines. Too much order, however, leads to rigidity. It stifles growth, it resists change, it makes you brittle. Then there's chaos. Chaos is unpredictability, the unknown, the challenge of facing something new. It's stepping outside your comfort zone, taking risks, encountering the unfamiliar. Chaos is where learning happens. But too much of it, that leads to anxiety, instability, and destruction. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you're too far into order, you need to introduce some chaos. And if your life is completely chaotic, you need to bring in some order. I see this all the time. Some people live in constant comfort. They have routines, they avoid risks, they keep everything predictable. But after a while, they stagnate. They feel stuck, uninspired, unchallenged. They need to introduce chaos voluntarily. That means taking on new responsibilities, trying something unfamiliar, putting themselves in situations that demand growth. Others live in total disorder. Their lives are unstable. They have no routines, no discipline, no plan. And they wonder why they're anxious, why nothing works out. They need to bring in order. That means waking up at the same time every day, cleaning their room, setting small, manageable goals, building habits that create stability. Here's a practical way to apply this. Look at your life honestly. Are you too rigid? Are you too chaotic? Identify which side is dominant and introduce the opposite gradually. If your life feels stagnant, take on a new challenge. If your life feels overwhelming, establish simple, consistent routines. If you feel bored, introduce unpredictability. If you feel lost, create structure. Because the ideal place to be is right on the edge. Balance between order and chaos. That's where growth happens. That's where strength is built. That's where you become someone who is not just surviving, but thriving. And here's your challenge. Find one area of your life where you're too rigid or too chaotic and adjust it. If you're too comfortable, do something that scares you. If your life is a mess, introduce one habit that brings order. See what happens. See how it changes you. Because life will always pull you toward one extreme or the other. But if you can stand in the middle, if you can master the balance, you will have the strength to face anything. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice a pattern emerging. Growth. True growth comes from deliberately facing discomfort. And one of the most powerful ways to build a strong mind is to confront what you fear voluntarily. Fear is an unavoidable part of life. It's wired into your biology. It exists to protect you, to keep you safe. But the problem is this: fear grows when you avoid it. Every time you turn away from something because it makes you uncomfortable, you reinforce the idea that you can't handle it. And over time, you shrink. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine that instead of avoiding the things that scare you, you turn toward them. You say, "All right, I'm afraid of this, but I'm going to face it anyway." That's how people grow. That's how they transform themselves. Think of it like this. Inside every fear, there's a dragon. That dragon is guarding something valuable. Your potential, your growth, your strength. If you avoid the dragon, it gets bigger. If you face it, if you challenge it, you become stronger. Let's say you're terrified of speaking in public. The more you avoid it, the worse it gets. The fear spreads, it starts controlling you. But if you decide to confront it, maybe by speaking up in a meeting, maybe by practicing in front of a mirror, you start gaining control. You start proving to yourself that you can handle it. Or maybe you fear rejection. You avoid difficult conversations. You don't ask for what you want. But if you start confronting that, if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, if you ask anyway, even if you get a no, you toughen up. You become more resilient. Here's a practical exercise. Identify one thing you've been avoiding because of fear, something small, something manageable, and instead of running from it, take one step toward it today. Just one step. Why? Because if you can voluntarily confront what terrifies you, you are no longer a victim of your fears. You become the master of them. And that is the foundation of a strong mind. There's something you need to understand about truth. It's not just about telling the truth. It's about living it. It's about aligning your actions, your words, and your values in a way that makes you stronger, not weaker. Most people don't realize how much they lie, not just to others, but to themselves. They say things they don't believe to avoid conflict. They stay in situations that are damaging because admitting the truth would be too painful. They make excuses instead of facing their shortcomings. But what happens when you do that? You become fragmented. You lose trust in yourself, and that weakens you. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine saying what you mean, doing what you say, and refusing to distort reality for comfort. What happens then? You become solid. People respect you, but more importantly, you respect yourself. There's a reason great thinkers and religious traditions across history emphasize truth. Because when you align yourself with reality instead of deception, you gain power. Let's say you're unhappy in your job, but instead of acknowledging it, you lie to yourself. It's not that bad. I should just be grateful. I'll deal with it later. But deep down, you know you're lying. And every time you do, you betray yourself. But if you choose to speak the truth, to admit, I'm in the wrong place, and I need to do something about it, you take back control. Now you can act. Now you can change. The same applies to your relationships. If you're suppressing what you really think to keep the peace, you're building resentment. You're becoming weak. But if you communicate honestly, if you express what's real, even when it's hard, you strengthen yourself, and you give others the opportunity to do the same. So here's your challenge. Pick one area of your life where you've been avoiding the truth. Maybe it's a habit you won't admit is a problem. Maybe it's a relationship that needs an honest conversation. Maybe it's a dream you've been pretending you don't care about. Face it, speak it, act on it. Because truth is what makes you unshakable, and a strong mind, a truly strong mind, does not build itself on lies. Now we come to the final and perhaps most important piece, responsibility. You see, people often search for happiness, but happiness is a fleeting thing. It comes and goes, dependent on circumstances. What truly gives life meaning is responsibility. Think about it. What happens when you take on a responsibility, something that truly matters? You gain purpose. You become stronger because others depend on you. You structure your life in a way that makes sense. Now, responsibility doesn't mean being crushed under the weight of obligation. It means voluntarily choosing to carry a meaningful burden. It means recognizing that your actions matter, that you are not insignificant. Look at the strongest people you know, the ones who inspire you. Are they aimless? Are they floating through life without purpose? They're people who have taken something upon themselves, whether it's their family, their career, their community, or a great personal goal. And because of that, they stand firm. Maybe your burden right now is small. Maybe it's just taking care of yourself. But even that is a responsibility, because if you neglect yourself, if you let your mind and body deteriorate, you become a burden to others instead of a force for good. So what's the alternative? You pick something up. You choose a direction. You set a goal worth striving for. Start small if you must. Make your bed in the morning, not because it's meaningless, but because it's the beginning of order in your life. Take care of your health, not because someone tells you to, but because it makes you capable. Choose a goal and move toward it, no matter how imperfectly. Because here's the truth. The stronger the burden you carry, the stronger you become. And the more responsibility you take, the more your life will take shape. Until one day you look around and realize you are standing tall, unshaken by the chaos of the world, because you built yourself that way. So take the step, pick something up, carry your burden and aim upward. That's how you forge a strong mind. That's how you create a meaningful life.